And what I did was I made a sort of list of what was absolutely necessary for him and what wasn't. And I realised that actually an awful lot of the time when you're shooting, two people talking, most of the time you're behind the actor, so you're not actually seeing his face. So you can shoot with a double. And then, the religious ceremony, for instance, it was clear that he wasn't going to be able to do that. But I had costumes designed which had these strange religious hats on, which covered their faces, and put somebody else in there, and his voice, and all this went on endlessly.
And I was trying to work that out. It looked like an All Souls. I was trying to work it out from the date of the letter. That was like an All Souls ceremony. But
yes, it was a sort of sort of November ceremony that took place. Yeah.
I mean, did you have a plan B? I mean, it must have occurred to you that you may not survive.
No.
What was going to happen if you didn't?
Well, look, it was a very strange thing because we got together to make this film. We were working perfectly happily, and we went to Los Angeles to write the screenplay together. Most of those other people on the screenplay list actually didn't have anything to do with the screenplay. They just had some contractual business, which I don't understand to this day. But it was Anna Pavignano, myself, and Massimo. And we went to Los Angeles, where he said that he liked Los Angeles because he could go out on the street and nobody would recognize him. We wrote the script in a hotel called Shutters Hotel on the beach. We were the only residents at that time, and it was fantastic. And we did all this stuff, and at the end of it, he said, "Look, now we're in America. I'm going to go down to Houston and just get my heart checked because I'm not sure it's okay." So he went down to Houston, and he didn't come back for 6 months. I went back to Rome, no Massimo, and nobody would tell me what was actually wrong with him. Nobody. It was very weird. I felt myself sort of shut out from this intense Neapolitan world where suddenly they weren't going to say, Neapolitans talk a lot. I hope there are no Neapolitans in the audience here, but they do talk a lot. And here they were not talking at all. They were not saying anything to anybody. and 6 months went by, and suddenly he was back again. And they said, "It's all on." And what had actually happened, I discovered much later, was that he'd gone to Houston and they'd said his heart was like a football, said it was in a terrible state. He was going to die. And they had to do this operation to fix it. So they did, and they kept him there. And they did he'd had several operations, but he did a huge major operation, which for a certain amount of time was okay. And then he got worse. He got worse, and suddenly got worse. And he collapsed on the set on the third day of shooting. And they said, everybody around him said, "It's over now. Okay, he's going to go back." And I'll never forget it. He called me up after 3 days of living. We stayed with his sister, who lived in a part of Rome called Linfernetta, which is sort of by the sea. And he called me up and he said, "Mike, tell me, how am I in this movie?" And in that moment, I knew that I had to make a decision, and I was being given the opportunity, not the opportunity, but the burden of making that decision. It was a choice of life and death. And I said to him, and I knew that if I said to him, "Listen, Massimo, it's not going terribly well," he'd have thrown it in the bin and maybe would have survived till today. But I also knew how much he wanted to make this movie, how much perhaps he felt deep down in his soul it was the last thing he was ever going to do. And so I said to him, "Massimo, you were incredible. You were incredible." He was. And he said, okay, let's do it. But I felt that I'd had to make a decision of life or death, and it haunted me all the way through the movie, right to the end.
You had plans to make another 2 or 3 films, is that correct, do you think?
Yes, we had actually, because we enjoyed each other's company a lot. You know, I mean, this whole thing came about because he'd seen this Scottish movie that I'd made called Another Time, Another Place, and he desperately wanted to work with me because he felt that I understood Italy in a way that perhaps other people don't. And I forgot what the question was, huh? He said, oh yeah, we were going to do, yeah. So we talked over a period of a year, 2 years. I would go to Rome, he would come to London, you know, we'd talk. And we came across this Chilean novel, which, actually the story of which has got nothing to do, very little to do. There's a postman and there's Pablo Neruda, but that's all. The rest of it is entirely rewritten. And it's a beautiful novel, by the way, written by a man called Antonio Scarmato, who's a wonderful writer, Chilean writer. But as we went through everything, we decided, we were having such good fun together, we decided, and listen, if you're a film director, the best thing that can happen to you is that a famous actor says he wants to do your movie because you're going to get it made. So he said to me, look, let's make a whole bunch of movies. So we had a whole slate of 5 movies which we were going to make.
Can you give us some idea about the subject matter of what those might be?
I can remember what the first one was. The first one was about a waiter in in Los Angeles, an Italian waiter in Los Angeles. And in fact, part of the journey to Los Angeles was to research the idea of, to go to a lot of restaurants and see whether Massimo could be an Italian waiter in one of these restaurants.
Initially, you talked about him having this brilliant sort of comedic timing, which is slightly different from the regular acting way of doing things. I mean, he is obviously a great actor too, but didn't you have a few problems with him initially, making up things and deviating from the script, and you had to sort of crack down on that?
Yes, we did. The thing was, he was an improviser. Because he's a comedian, he was an improviser. The great thing about a comedian is he usually nails it on the first take, and then it gets progressively worse because they're used to going like this, as opposed to Al Pacino, who gets it on the 15th take or the 16th take and wants to do more. But he actually, I say that because I've worked with him and he's a wonderful actor too, but in a different way. But Massimo, being a comedian, he would get things right straight off. No rehearsal, and then straight after, if you did it again a couple of times, it would just start to lose its stuff.
That scene where he's with Philippe Noiret and he has the ball, and that you allowed him to improvise a bit with that, and he was saying, you can't do one poem with the ball. And you can't write one poem and call yourself
that. Yes. Well, okay. So what we got to was a point where he said, look, and he was always improvising. He would always start making up lines, and the scenes would go on forever. And I would say to him, look, Massimo, we can't do this. We're not going to make the dates, and you can't improvise. We've spent an age writing this screenplay. Let's just shoot the screenplay. We like it. And he said, okay, you don't like my improvisations. I said, well, if you stand up on stage, I love you when you improvise, but right here, right now, we have a film to make. And he said, okay, I won't. He said, look, if an idea comes to me, can I make a little, I'll ask you. And he was very good until it came to that scene with the ball, and they're standing on the cliff, and he says, how could you, this ball has been in her mouth, that whole thing. He said, look, I've got an idea here. And I said, okay, come on, go for it. We'll do one take and then we'll go back to the script. And it just went on, and it was just brilliant. It was brilliant. And
you've got